So I am recording, just so you know. I will be putting this up on YouTube when we're done with this. So good morning and welcome to the review session for rule of law, types of law, and sources of law. And so I will be using the PowerPoint, the worksheet, the PDF that you got yesterday, and then the review questions at the end of the PowerPoint. So let's get started. I will bring up our PowerPoint real first. Oh, let me hold on. Let's see. Let me stop that real quick. Wide. Right, there we go. Now I'll share. Bam. All right, so everybody should be seeing the, make sure I got that up. All right, very good. All right, so again, everybody should be seeing the PowerPoint in the, being shared with you right now. Is anybody not seeing? Can put that in the text in the chat, but I'm assuming everybody's good, so I'm just going to keep going. So I got chat window open too. All right, very good. All right, so here we go. Now, oops. Now the first thing we need to understand that we are building upon what we've started with this whole judicial branch and laws and understanding all of this stuff. The first thing we got now, I don't know if any of you saw this, but there were Easter eggs throughout the PowerPoint. And so anytime you see a highlighted where you put your mouse over it and you got a video, let's just see what this one talks about here. Let's see if this works. Are you guys seeing the video clip coming up?
Are you looking for a spa that is perfect?
Hold on.
One that helps relieve pain, helps weight loss, helps stay fit. But in 15 days, liver money without you ever leaving your home.
Oops.
Hey, I'm Steve.
Where is it?
All
right. All right. So you guys saw that clip, yes? Could you see it? No, Josue, you didn't see it? It didn't show? Hold on. Go ahead.
It was like we didn't hear anything.
You didn't hear anything?
You can't hear anything, and the frames were going by like 5 frames per second.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just wanted to test something. I didn't know what you guys are able to see or not, but that's fine. All right, let's go back to our original share of the PowerPoint. The point is, though, there are Easter eggs throughout this PowerPoint, little videos up from Mr. Raymond and stuff. So I'm going to mute you guys again. All right, here we go. So anyways, rule of law, no one is above the law. Nixon, with a clip you were watching, was again the recreation of the interview between David Frost and Richard Nixon, the president. But this goes along with the idea of understanding the prior case that we were talking about, Nixon versus United States with the tapes. So these are, again, he was operating at a different mindset, that he could break the law. So let's go to this. Now, again, equality is important to understand. Everybody is the same under rule of law. Now, this hasn't always been the case throughout history, but we're going to see throughout this PowerPoint how equality is what's important in understanding how the law works. So, and what we ended up seeing, and this was the history of laws, all right, where they came from. Now, the really important thing to understand right off the bat is the Code of Hammurabi is the first set of laws that were ever recorded. All right, it doesn't mean that laws didn't exist before the Code of Hammurabi. It just meant nobody was writing them down yet. So there's a couple things I want to draw your attention to in this slide. First off, eye for an eye. It was even a question on our guided notes. All right, that is the main one that it's known for because it was the first time you were seeing a punishment fit a crime in a sense. If you took an eye from somebody, well, then your eye was plucked out. If you, they were doing all kinds of different things. Let's see, here's some of them. Code was not equal to all based on social class. This was not where equality was established. The higher the class of victim, the greater the punishment. This was rewarding the wealthy and the rich, but at least it established some form of law. All right, if anyone is caught committing a robbery and is caught, then he shall be put to death. All right, real severe consequences trying to keep the lower people in check so they weren't like doing things against the wealthy people. But this is the first one, Code of Hammurabi, eye for an eye. And if you're not sure where this is coming from, this is Babylon. All right, this would be currently where I think Iraq or Iran sits. I think it's Iraq because Iran is Persia. So anyways, that is Babylon. Let's go to our next set of laws. They're the 12 tables. And this picture here in the center is great because they literally were there in the center of town. Everybody could see them and you knew what the laws were. Now, this is where we start seeing the kind of laws that we have today. All right. This is important in the lower left corner, the presumption of innocence, which means you're innocent until proven guilty. We understand that in society, most people will say, you did a crime, you're guilty. All right. There's no, people see guilt quickly, but by law, they have to prove your guilt. And that's one of the unfair things that's been happening towards our president. You know, he's in a very difficult situation right now with the coronavirus. He can't do anything right by the liberal media's perspective. And so whether he has a travel ban or he doesn't have a travel ban, whether he's got people working or not working, he's going to get blamed for everything right now. He's guilty until proven innocent, but that's not the way it was set up. All right. Second thing is in the lower right corner here, we see that law applied equally to everyone. This is the first time we see equality across society. All right. The patricians, these were people that were the wealthy class, and the plebeians were the lower class. And so, as we saw on the last slide, the elite, the wealthy, were treated special, different. In this one, everybody's equal. And so we're beginning to see the process of equality through societies. All right. So where did the 12 tables come from? They came from Rome. All right. So Rome is in power at this point in society. At this point in society, Babylon is in power. All right. Now we're moving on to our next. This is kind of a continuation of the Roman rule, Roman law, but this is the Code of Justinian. Now, he was a Roman emperor, and he put out a series of laws that the main importance for these ones is they're a collection of laws that continues to influence international public law. Even to this day, the international court system uses these laws. All right, a lot of these laws, not all of them, but a lot of these laws are still in use today. All right. So that gets through the early history of law. Now we move into the Middle Ages. Now the Middle Ages, again, a little different, but here we have the church and kings are in control. So we have kings making their own rules. We have in laws, we have the church in power. The church is over canon law. The king, the early law was Magna Carta, and we learned about that back when we were studying how our colony got created. The next thing you need to understand with the Middle Ages is the idea of statutory law versus common law. Now, statutory law is what we have in existence in the legislative branch. All right, that means a parliament, some kind of legislative body is creating law. We can see that down here in the lower part of the slide, statutory law. Common law, this is just information that certain judges would pass down and say, these are precedents or previous cases that have been established that I'm going to take my ruling from and use it in this present case. And that's common. All right. And when you think of common, you think of everyday things. All right. Statutory, I don't know. Maybe if you want to think of like a statue being somebody standing up straight and tall, like in a legislative body where they're yelling at one another. I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with something that might help you remember the difference between common law and statutory law. Again, common judges are using other judges' decisions to render their laws. So at this point, I want to see what's my next slide. Oh, one more slide, and then I'll open it up to everybody. Now, by the time we get to our colonies, these are the kinds of laws that we're using. We're going to be using statutes, which are laws made in the legislative body, and common laws, laws that existed on the books that are being used to govern society. All right. So you have your House of Burgesses. This over here was the first, one of the first houses of legislation in the colonies. It was 1618, and it was established in Virginia, which was the first colony. And then you have over here an example of common law, where we see a judge. Where's the judge? I'm guessing he's probably the guy in the, well, anyways, they're using some form of prior law to determine a case. All right. So this leads us to the understanding that laws existed in the colonies for 150 years before we created the judicial branch. All right. 1787, new government. Here we have laws that have been in existence for this entire time. We're not a lawless society. It governs everything. So let's go back, and I will unmute everybody, and I would like to, mute everybody. I'm gonna stop sharing for just a moment and open it up to any questions, unless you have just something you want to type in the chat box. Any questions? Alexi?
For the guided notes, I think I got everything right, but except for the
Yes, Cheryl.
You're having a hard time hearing you, Alexi. Somebody's really loud. Hold on. Let me mute everybody, and I'll just unmute Alexi. Hold on. There you are. All right, go ahead, Alexi.
I was having some trouble with the guided notes. It was when, hang on, let me get it up. It was when I was trying to find the 4 types of laws from the Middle Ages and the 4 sources of laws in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, the 4 types of laws, which is what we just covered. So I will show it back to you real quick.
Because for the source laws, I put the Magna Carta and then the canon law.
Right? Those are two of them. And then there are also statutes and common law. So there were four different types of law, sources of law back in the Middle Ages. Kings, laws made by kings, laws made by the church, and then laws made by a legislature, which are statutes, and laws made by judges, which are common law. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the only four laws I should write down are the Magna Carta, the canon law, statutory law, and then the common law of judges and
Right. Those are the four sources from the Middle Ages.
okay.
All right. All right. So
Man,
let's
let me
see.
just change
Chat.
this
Somebody
quick.
had a chat for me question. What were some laws made by the churches? Good question, Leroy. Let me mute you. Hold on. All right. Now, let's go back to that slide. Now, the churches, it's very interesting. This is a side note, so you understand how things were back in these days. But the church controlled everything in the from about 800 AD to about 1300 AD, when somewhere around the Magna Carta is getting written. Churches basically were in control of the people. All right, the Roman Catholic Church, the English Church, what would be that? Anglo-Saxon Church in England. These were very powerful bodies that acted more like a government than they were a church. And so they created laws based on the Bible, but were, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder, whatever, thou shalt not commit adultery. These are like some of the 10 commandments, and these would be considered church laws. And then there would be other ones like you can't read the Bible unless you're in the presence of a priest. All right, so they were also limiting information. Who was able to read, who was able to be in control of certain things. These were all established by the church in their form of laws. So while you don't need to understand all this to understand canon law, it just helps you to what would be their constitution in a sense. Their constitution would be the Bible, and that's where they're creating their laws. All right. I hope that answers your question, Neroy. Okay, go ahead, Wyatt. You're typing it, or you want to ask it out loud? Here you go. Go ahead. You're alive, Wyatt.
Quick question. The worksheets you've been assigning this week, will they be put in before or after progress reports?
All right, that's a great question, and I will answer it in a video later today.
Okay.
All right. Cough, unmute me, cough. Ha 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 ha. All right, here we go. So we're back to our slideshow at this point. We are now moving into the different types of law, but we need to understand it first off, how laws work within our present society. All right. We understand that there are federal laws because these are the laws that are created by our legislative body. All right. The legislative branch at the highest level. All right. These include bankruptcy, smuggling, our Bill of Rights, among anything else. Even, let's see, newest law that's been passed recently. There was a prison reform law that was passed last year that became the new way things are being handled within the prison system. All right. It's a law that was created at the federal level, and it affects all the federal prisons. Now, you then have state laws outside. So you got the United States, the whole United States, then we have little Florida in the corner. All right, now we have laws that are based strictly for the state level, and they're going to generally deal with more simple situations that don't affect everybody on a wide scale, but affect everybody within the state. These are your criminal cases, all right? Murder, robbery. Then you have your civil cases, divorce. You're not going to deal with that at the federal level. It's going to be handled at the state level. Driver's license issues. All right, these are all state laws. Now, the last thing we have are our local laws, driving issues, texting, helmets, traffic lights, speeding. All these happen more at a local level. And so we have, these are the, we understand jurisdiction, all right? And then we understand that they're gonna be at the different levels. Federal, across the nation, state, just in Florida. Local would be your city, Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Lehigh Acres, wherever you might be. All right, now, this brings us into the individual differences between all the types of law. Let's see, where's my time? All right, good. So, criminal law, that is the primary law. That's the one where we see most. All right, this is robbery, anything where you're hurting an individual intentionally. All right. Now, our next one then is at the bottom would be the civil law. These are where you have personal injuries, a contract's been ignored, somebody got hurt on your property and you have to pay for their medical bills, a divorce, property issues. These are all kind of civil issues. And they're usually dealing with a money being the means of punishment versus a criminal case, which would be more time served or fines. Then we move into, oh wait, here's our criminal one. All right, so we got felony. These are the serious ones: murder, robbery, arson, kidnapping. Misdemeanors, reckless driving, drinking, underage, different things like that. All right, again, and they are passed to create a safe and orderly society. That's all about the criminal side of things. All right, that is how you spell important. Nice. All right, anyways, constitutional law. This is what we're going to be studying a lot next as we go through the Bill of Rights, and it's what we studied last, which was understanding all the cases that have been heard at the Supreme Court level. Constitutional laws deal with rights, all right? Right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all our different freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of petition, freedom of assembly, all right? All these freedoms are protected under our constitutional law. All right, which gets us to the last type of law, which is military law. Now, there is one other type of law which we don't have. It's juvenile law, and we know about that from In Re Galt. But you might have seen some questions in iCivics about juvenile law. I don't think there's any questions on the. I know there's no questions on the test about that. But military law strictly affects the military. All right. If the question is talking about a soldier leaving his post, it's not constitutional, it's not criminal, it's not civil, it can only be military. So if anything in the question says a soldier, an army person, a military person, that's the clue which law it is. So I really expect everybody to get this military question. The others I can understand maybe a little bit getting confused, but they can only be military people that are affected by this. So that gets us through the entire PowerPoint. I will open it up real quickly to any questions. Where did that slide go? So let me stop share for just a moment. All right, unmute everybody. Does anybody have a question looking over the PowerPoint?
I do.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Bless you.
Who said I do?
That would be me. Hi.
Go ahead, Soraya.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes. I'm going to mute everybody but Soraya, so hold on.
It's
Oh, was it Jacob that had the question? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying, Soraya?
Yeah, I think Jacob had the question.
Okay. All right, my bad, sorry. I'll meet you. Where'd Jacob go? Spicy Nugget. Where are you, Spicy Nugget? There you are. All right, go ahead, Jacob.
Okay. It's an off-topic question, completely irrelevant.
Not now. All right. Any other questions? Then let's go to the last review. And I want to make sure we at least get through the questions. I'm going to do the worksheet separate. So let me get through the questions right now. Let's share. Where's my thing? Share screen. All right, let's finish this up.